Kobe. Now we want to welcome Aiden, Zirene, Moon to the desk to help us break down Curse's win. Now that's a win for Curse after a pretty underwhelming showing last weekend. Is this us kind of watching them take the reins back and get back into their groove going into the end of the season, I guess?
Yeah, I think they have. It's been the season for Curse the entire time. Like, they're always almost good enough to be a top team. They've had so many games, even at the very beginning, where they would almost beat all the guys in the top 4. Their losses last week is just sort of more of Curse being Curse. It's like, hey, sometimes they just don't show up quite right. Sometimes they just kind of screw things up. But, like, I expect to see more of that 3-1 super weak Curse. Like, they have the players to do that. They have the shot calling to do that. They have the right sort of teamwork and mindset to do that. And it's just kind of like which one shows up, and it's really up to them. Like, you can't predict their week-to-week results. It's up to how they play in a given day.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It's how they play on that given day, and they innovated today. They brought that AD carry Tristan in the mid lane. Voyboy had been playing it a little bit on his stream. Got a little glimpse of how good it was in that mid lane. And, Kwasi played at AP top, so it's kind of one of those things where you don't know where it's going to go if they are innovating. Turns out it's mid lane, and they crushed with it. And it's on the other team to react to that and come up with a battle plan mid-champion select.
All right, well, to that point of innovation, we saw a couple other champions make their first showing. Yeah. Whereas Nidalee I wouldn't consider being her first showing, but the reworked Nidalee, as well as the Xerath, Phreak, talk to me a little bit about those choices by Dig.
Sure. So I really liked what Dignitas had set up here because Nidalee is like the premier lane builder right now. She's like the new Renekton, basically. And that fits Dig's style really well, where they can say, Zion, go do things by yourself, go create pressure. He did have a couple of misplays. That solo death to Lulu was really bad. But by and large, this is a good thing for teams like Dignitas who can rely on the individual play on one side. The Xerath also, and I know Jack talked about this as well, fits Shifter perfectly. I expect to see him play more of this champion. Xerath is sort of like the new Nidalee as far as mid laners are concerned, where it's like, do you like playing poke champs? Great, here's a poke champ who attacks from very, very far away. The difficulty being that he doesn't have the same escape tools in Nidalee, so you can actually punish this.
All right, Zirene, so when we have a bunch of these poke champions in the game like this, we saw some early bullying going on with the Tristana against the Xerath, but then when we got to team fights, it was just like a basic standoff. So what is the cause of that, and what's the solution to actually getting into a battle?
Well, I told you it's on the other team to counter it at Champion Select. They had no hard engage. Xpecial was really their only ticket into that fight for Curse. And they end up getting it a couple times, and those were very key points. But another thing that I actually want to jump back a little bit to Phreak's answer there, because you talked about the Nidalee. I didn't like the Nidalee in this game. I felt like Zion Spartan was playing a split push game, and against double AD carries Tristana Jinx, they will fast push a base faster than you can split push because of their Qs and their attack speed increases. Also, Zion Spartan built fully split push, Blade of the Ruined King, Trinity Force, not a single armor item on him. He didn't want to be involved in these fights against AD carries, which made it so that he couldn't show up. He couldn't be a force to be reckoned with, and he would have just been destroyed. We saw it in the very last fight, too, where he was a non-factor and just ran away and gave up the base.
Absolutely. And we'll take another look at a replay, the final Baron fight, where we'll watch those two AD carries burn down that Baron. Doesn't give any time to respond. Phreak, go ahead and walk me through this one.
Yeah, so the cool thing about this is Curse have actually done this, and they had no wards in this, but somehow this was the exact time that Shifter's taking his blue buff on the other side of the map. So Dig has no way to contest this fight whatsoever. They shouldn't even try once they realize it's this low. The steal attempt, I understand. It's a fine. It's a 50-50 for Crumbs, and if he gets it, that's great. But the rest shouldn't be limping in. So if you play this fight out, it's Crumbs dying for free, obviously, and then like Kiwi Kid's like there by himself waiting for his team to show up, but they have a guaranteed 4-on-5, and the problem is you have a team with a bunch of resets, 3 of them actually on every assist, and so they just jump in for kill after kill after kill. And again, it's another situation where just Dig shouldn't be here.
Yeah, there's a ton of chase potential here on the side of Curse. So is the solution here, obviously, like you said, the steal is fine, you give up the Baron, keep Zion in that bot lane, because that's one of the impetuses for them going for the Baron to start, was they saw Zion in the bottom lane.
Yeah, it's really difficult to sort of play around this. Like, both teams have this weird, like, if you lose vision, you're super screwed. Because we saw things in the random mid-game. There was the 4th dragon that went down. Xpecial didn't see a cocoon come out, and he just dropped. He can't, his stun, so he can't put the Unbreakable up. He just dies to all the siege, all the poke damage. He will just immediately drop as the main tank on the team. Same thing for Dignitas, though. If you don't see the enemy team, double AD carry, Baron dies in 4 seconds. And you, out of nowhere, like, you've just lost your entire way to play this game. Or if you don't see Evelynn, she flanks you, and your entirely squishy siege-based team falls apart. And, well, Curse had the situation where they didn't see him go for Baron, and suddenly it's gone.
All right, another question regarding the Xerath, because it's such a new champion. We've seen it a few times in EU and NA. we're watching the middle lane evolve. We're watching the top lane evolve with Lulu and Kale and Nidalee coming out in the top lane, things like that. What do the other lanes need to do now to kind of catch up in evolution? How are we going to see those lanes change the other lanes? Zirene?
Oh, we just saw a little bit of that here with the Tristana. Against this double AD composition, like I said, you can't split push. It's going to force you to pick something that's a better team fighter, better hard engage type champion that can deal with this heavy damage. And man, the builds from Dignitas is something I want to touch on too, because, oh man, no real stacking of defensive stats at all. When you see one fed Tristana, you're kind of like, all right, we need armor. Even if it's just one armor threat. They went with Crumb's full magic penetration build there. He didn't have a single defensive item in his inventory. And then Zion Spartan, same thing. So these types of roles, you need to adapt your build, and then that will sometimes affect what is a good build on this champion, and can we take that build to a different champion. When Sightstone was something that was seen in the jungle, it was like, oh, Nunu's really good with that item. Let's start playing Nunu jungle. So these things are types of evolutions that change the dynamic, and you talked about top lane. Gragas top, huge bully in the top lane. You can win it, and then that causes spillover into other lanes, and then how do you deal with that? Because this thing right here with the Tristana, you're not going to roam. We saw no roams to side lanes, which means you can play bigger lane bullies bottom and just win the lane solo if you're just going to have somebody pushing mid. So there's a whole big dynamic, and each lane isn't really its own microcosm, but if it is, it affects other lanes at the same time.
Yeah, I actually want to get off on the back of that one because you mentioned the Tristana not being able to roam point. This is one of the things that actually got Dig an early lead, was the fact that they got to push aggressively against an Evelynn of all champions. Like, they killed the bottom outer turret because, so one, Morgana's a counterpick to Braum. Braum can no longer do anything in the lane as long as Kiwi Kid's playing properly. You block everything, he's just useless. So it lets basically Cog Morgana 2v1 Jinx, which is now an advantageous lane, despite being a Kog'Maw lane. So they took the turret down. They only got punished by one gank. They know Voivoy's not coming. You know, same things happen in the top lane as well. Zion Spartan's always pushing. And you talk about the champions spilling over and the fact that they're not microcosms. Well, here you go. You see two turrets going down just in the laning phase for Dignitas because of things like Tristana mid.
All right, well, there's clearly a ton to discuss regarding the new changes, things like that, and the way that these games will evolve. Luckily, we have a ton of games coming our way to watch that evolution. Guys, thank you for the input. We'll be back later. Now, there are still more explosive action coming your way. After a brief break, Evil Geniuses will be taking to the Rift to battle it out with Counter Logic Gaming in our second game of the day. The NA LCS continues after this.